At the beginning of this movie, we see a lecherous king whose palace was filled with many beautiful girls who were always ready to satisfy his desires. King Jun had a great passion for painting, so he would summon 2 girls to the palace and order them to be intimate with each other so that he could paint them. One day, when the king was in his palace, he called a man named Wo. Wo's son was named Kai. Kai was a very close and trusted friend of the king. A few days earlier, the king's mother had been murdered, so the king asked both of them, "Who could have killed my mother? Do you suspect anyone?" Kai and Wo replied, "Your court is full of your enemies. Any one of them could be the killer." The king trusted these 2 men deeply. Upon hearing this, the king began ordering the execution of anyone he suspected. A little later, when Kai was in his room, where several beautiful girls were present to entertain him, a maidservant came and told him that a new girl had arrived in the palace. This new girl's name was Mai. She came to Kai and said, "I know that you are the first to notice every new girl who arrives in the palace." In reality, Kai had been searching for a special girl for many years, someone he had deeply loved. So whenever a new girl arrived, he would look at her carefully to see if she was his childhood love. The moment he saw Mai, Kai realized she was not that girl. But Mai was very confident that she could win him over with her charm and beauty. When an argument broke out between them, Kai proposed a game. He said, "As I finish each cup of wine, you will remove 1 piece of clothing." So Kai kept drinking, and Mai kept removing her clothes one by one. Mai had assumed Kai would only manage 2 or 3 cups, but Kai kept drinking, which forced Mai to remove more and more of her clothing. Eventually, the moment came when she refused to remove her last piece of clothing. Seeing this, Kai became furious. In anger, he poured wine on her and humiliated her deeply. Meanwhile, whenever King Jun rode through his kingdom, any young girl who caught his eye would be assaulted right then and there. Anyone who displeased him was executed on the spot. The king also had a beloved consort named Fai. Whenever the king was in a bad mood, Fai would come to him and calm him down with her intimate company. One day, the king ordered his friend Kai, "Bring me every young girl you find." Following the king's command, Kai began abducting girls. If any father refused to give up his daughter, he was beaten like an animal, and then his daughter was taken away and handed over to the king. People had previously only hated the king, but now, because of Kai's actions, they began to hate him too. One day, while roaming through the market, Kai's eyes fell on a butcher and his daughter. They performed stunts and slaughtered animals as a spectacle for the crowd. The butcher's daughter was dancing for the people, and everyone watching was delighted. This girl's name was Lin, and she was extraordinarily beautiful. It seemed as though Kai had been searching for her for years. While Kai was in the market, the crowd suddenly recognized him. Since people were already angry at Kai, they surrounded him and began beating him, but then Lin came forward and saved him. The crowd had beaten Kai unconscious, so Lin brought him to her home. When Kai regained consciousness, he asked Lin, "Who taught you the sword dance?" Lin told him, "I am a butcher. I learned all of this through my own work." Lin knew that Kai was the king's friend, so she said to him, "I want to serve the king. Can you take me to the palace?" But Kai refused. He could not bring a butcher's daughter before the king. The next day, when Kai went to a merchant's house to take his daughter, the merchant presented Lin as his own daughter. In truth, Lin's father had borrowed a large sum of money from this merchant and had been unable to repay it. So in exchange, the merchant had taken Lin from her father and presented her to Kai. Kai had no choice. He had to take Lin with him. On the other side, Bai was also preparing a girl for the king, and that girl was Mai. She wanted to bring Mai close to the king. Afterward, girls from across the region were presented before the king. Their training began so they could all please the king. They were taught how to satisfy him and were given training in various intimate arts. This training continued for many days. One night, some soldiers saw their opportunity and sneaked into Lin's room, intending to assault her. But at that very moment, Kai arrived and saved her. All the girls were then presented before the king. Each of them had to eat a dish and explain why they wanted to eat it. Both Mai and Lin were present. When it was Mai's turn, she chose a dish that was said to set the body on fire with desire. The king was extremely pleased with Mai. Then came Lin's turn. Kai had already told her what the king liked and how to impress him, so Lin ate the king's favorite dish and recited a poem because Kai had told her that the king had a passion for poetry. Hearing Lin's poem, the king became emotional. As a result, both Lin and Mai became favorites of the king. Kai had played a major role in making Lin a royal favorite. He had been training her in secret. One day, while watching Lin perform the sword dance, Kai realized she was the very girl he had been searching for all these years. In fact, Kai and Lin had loved each other deeply in childhood, but Kai's father, Wo, had separated them because Lin's father had been branded a traitor and killed by the king, after which Lin had disappeared. Seeing Lin, Kai understood that she was indeed his childhood love. Lin was already skilled in the sword dance, but now she also began learning combat techniques from Kai. Lin also sensed that Kai had begun to have feelings for her, but she said nothing. One night, a grand celebration was held in the palace, where all the girls performed different dances. Everyone was thrilled by Mai's performance, but when Lin came forward with her sword to dance, people were initially confused. However, her sword dance left everyone absolutely astonished. In truth, Lin wanted to take revenge on the king for her father's murder, but before she could act, an arrow came flying toward her. Kai saw it and took the arrow upon himself to save her. In reality, Kai's father Wo did not want a butcher's daughter anywhere near the king, so he had plotted to kill Lin. But Kai had found out in time. When Kai regained his senses, he confronted his father in a rage. He wanted to overthrow the king, but Wo tried to stop him. Years ago, Wo had handed over Kai's own mother to the king, and afterward, Kai's mother had taken poison and ended her life. This was why Kai also burned with a desire for revenge against the king. The next day, the king grew suspicious of several people and had them all arrested. He then forced their own wives to execute them. One girl, desperate to save her husband, agreed to do anything for the king. The king then assaulted her openly in front of everyone, and when he was done, he had her husband killed anyway. King Jun was a truly despicable man. Witnessing her husband's death, the girl took her own life as well. This enraged Jun greatly. Afterward, Jun summoned both Mai and Lin and made them compete against each other, forcing them to be intimate with each other while he sat painting them. He declared, "Whichever of you stops first, her beautiful head will be cut off and gifted to the winner." Their contest began. Before long, Mai lost. The king was about to behead her, but Lin stepped in and said, "If Mai dies, her head will no longer be beautiful." The king was greatly pleased by Lin's wit. He then made Mai Lin's personal maidservant. By this time, Kai had fallen deeply in love with Lin. He could not bear the thought of her being with the lecherous king, so Kai secretly ordered his men to take Lin out of the palace. But once they were outside and stopped to rest, it was Mai they found, not Lin. Lin had returned to King Jun herself, hoping to get close to him and avenge her father's death. She had almost succeeded in luring him into a trap and killing him, but Wo arrived and caught her just in time. The next day, Lin was brought before everyone. Her entire history was exposed. After her father's death, the man she had accepted as her adoptive father, a butcher, had also been arrested by the king. He was brutally beaten in front of Lin. The king also grew suspicious of Kai and Wo. When an investigation was carried out, Jun's suspicions proved completely correct. Now both father and son begged the king for forgiveness. Jun told Kai, "I will forgive you easily if you write me a letter of apology using Lin's blood." To regain the king's trust, Kai wrote a letter using Lin's blood and handed it to the king. Jun saw it and forgave him. Kai then rushed to Mai and asked her to save Lin's life because Lin was gravely wounded but not yet dead. Mai somehow managed to sneak Lin out of the palace and have her treated. Slowly, Lin began to recover. Although Kai had regained the king's trust, he still burned with a desire to avenge his mother's death. He secretly joined forces with the king's enemy, Sen, and hatched a plan to eliminate the king. According to his plan, one night he drank heavily with King Jun and then locked him inside a chamber to die. Kai then released several wild animals into the chamber so they would kill and devour the king. On the other side, we see Lin. She had fully recovered thanks to proper treatment. Back at the palace, a new king named Sen had taken over and seized complete control. At the very end of the story, we see Kai. He had begun living his life just like Lin, performing the sword dance to earn his living. The movie ends with Kai's sword dance. If you enjoyed this movie, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more such content. See you in the next video.